Friday morning, can't control it. Fired up and counting every minute. Hands are shaking, eyes are burning. The time has come, yeah, this is not a warning. The week was just so long, we had to let it go. Our problems disappeared, we're not tied up anymore. The weekend is here. Sunday calls, we are sick and tired of it. Up and down, can you feel it?
Hey everybody, welcome to the Johansson show. It's Kurt, and today, whilst I've been looking in hashtag Scandinagraphs, I'm now looking at the Finnish wrestling scene with Regina Rosendahl. Regina, thank you for coming on.
Yay, thank you for having me.
Really excited. Like, I'd been looking and I was like, right, eventually I need to have a look at the Finnish wrestling scene. I spoke to Eccentrico, who used to wrestle on the scene way back when, but living here in the UK. But I was like, I need somebody where, like, who's that going to be? And just from seeing, like, your Instagram and your social medias, such a positive, bubbly person as well, and everybody sings your praises. So I thought the perfect guest to kick off my look into the Finnish wrestling scene.
Awesome, thank you. I'm not sure about bubbly though, but we'll see.
I think it's just the way you are. You tell it how it is, and I respect that a lot.
Thank you. I can't help it.
So, like, what was the Finnish wrestling scene like when you were starting to get into it?
It was very. It was 7 years ago, and it was a very much smaller scene. There were two other, well, actually three women. We had Sara Electra, who I think is now retired, Aurora, who is now retired, and Jessica Love, who is still working. I think she's been wrestling for like 12 years,
Okay.
I think, and she's the only transgender female wrestler in Europe.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, and then it kind of when Sara and Aurora dropped out, and this other girl that started with me also quit. There was just me and Jessica, but we weren't allowed to wrestle each other because she was transgender and she was only wrestling the guys. And then I was basically the only female in the women's division, so to speak.
Yeah.
And yeah, the women were treated so differently than the men. Let's just say, let's say that. I was getting to work with a lot of like talent from abroad, so that was like a cool thing. I got to wrestle alpha female. I had Toni Storm. I had lots of these girls from all over, so that was a nice learning experience. But then again, I got that because they didn't see me as the same as the guys, so it's kind of bittersweet. But yeah, it was there was a lot of bullying, a lot of a little bit of sexual harassment as well. But since that has not happened to me personally, I will not comment on that more. But mostly just bullying and the old school kind of ranking system stuff. And it was a little bit all over the place. There wasn't really that much structure, and who was the actual boss and who should be doing that and who should be doing this. It was very all over the place. But I do have to say, when you mentioned El Eccentrico, he was I think I would say I was friends with him when he was in Finland. When he left, he left me a book on wrestling holds or something. It was like a basic wrestling basics, and then he left me his kick pads, which I wrestled. I think first 2 years of my career I wrestled with his kick pads, but I had new covers on them, so I don't think no one noticed. But that's kind of like a fun thing to. I met him once in Leicester when I was in Rupert Brookside School, but that's basically, I don't think I've seen him since. But yeah, it was a mess, really. And I was very close to quitting myself, even though this is, everything I've always wanted to do. I never wanted to do anything else. But when the bullying and the body shaming and everything it really got to me. Obviously with my mental health issues, which we will probably get into later, that kind of just added to it. So I was really about to quit. So it was we came to a point when the person in charge, we had like, because we are an organization, we can vote who is running the place. So we voted the old guy out, and we got a new guy who had already been wrestling for I think 11 years at that point, but still like new to running the whole show. And that's when we made that happen. That's when things started to go for the better, and we've been growing and growing and growing ever since.
It's really interesting that you have like a voting system of, no, we don't want you now, like we're gonna have this guy. Who was it that took the reins? Who did you vote in?
It was Juhana King Kong Karhula, who is, I think he might be the best wrestler we've ever had in Finland.
Yeah,
we do have some competition for him now, but like he's just amazingly physically talented guy, also a big guy, so he was strong and agile. And I think his heel work now that he's doing, he's working like a general manager and the champion kind of thing right now, and it's brilliant. But yeah, he was the guy.
Oh, brilliant. What was the training like then? Because the way you've described it, when you first started, it wasn't maybe the best place if you're a woman, and that's clearly changed because of how people sing the praises of FCF and what's happening with female talent there. But what was it like for you training under all those like circumstances? Because again, this is everything you've ever wanted.
It was horrible. I expected it to be hard, and the hardest part wasn't the physicality of it, even though those are hard as well, but just it was so mentally draining to be treated, because I have a background in kickboxing and boxing, so when I did that, I was training with men, women, everything. We didn't really discriminate. So when I got into pro wrestling, all of a sudden I'm a woman. And that it was very, very difficult for me. But I think it honestly wasn't easy for the guys either. Because it was kind of like, it was custom to coach in one way. And if you do not learn with this way, then too bad.
Yeah.
So now, so I think that was the hardest thing. It was like, if you were physically talented, and you could pick up things quick, it might have been okay for you. But if you were at all slower, or just more analytic on what are you doing and stuff, then it was a lot harder. And there was no structure really. There was no psychology behind the coaching. It was just, okay, you need to know these moves and the mass structure, and you need to have a character, but not like actual tools on how to do that.
Yeah.
But right now, we've changed that quite drastically. I'm actually the head coach in Finland right now. I'm kind of like seeing that everything, that like there needs to be like a balance. There needs to be psychology behind it. There needs to be, okay, this person can teach you the technical stuff. This person knows the psychology. This person, we have an acting coach, like an actual actor who is training us to with that. And then we have our strength coach, who is an actual power lifter, who is doing that. So that was very close to my heart because I've been also coaching, basketball. I did coaching in kickboxing as well. I have, I have education on that. I've done courses and stuff, so I knew, what it should be like. So when I got the chance to do that, it was, yeah,
That was.
And I don't know if there are many women head coaches around the world. I think,
especially if it's not a gender specific company and where it is men and women. Like, I don't, off the top of my head, I wouldn't be able to say. I know Aisha Raymond's the head coach at the Feast Females dojo. But again, that's Feast Females where it's just employing the female athletes. So props to you for that. Talk about a U-turn in Finnish wrestling. I think that's a testament to show just how much the Finnish scene's grown, not only in terms of the quality of the wrestling, but just as decent human beings. Like, to change it's really hard to get rid of the old guard and to change the old ways. And it's as if you literally forget what we got taught, forget how things were done. This is how we're doing it. And for you to be spearheading that movement as the head coach, like, that's amazing.
Yeah, thanks. But it's like, we're not saying like everything that has been done before is bad. Like, of course not. But these are some huge fundamental things that were not working.
Yeah.
And that's why I think the biggest change has happened within our organization, and then it shows in our product as well. So yeah, we're striving for equality and just inclusivity for everyone.
No, that's great. So what prompted you to go from like kickboxing, boxing to pro wrestling?
You mean, where did I get sparked to start wrestling, or?
Yeah, so obviously you've got the background in the boxing and kickboxing, but what made you decide, actually, don't want to do that, I want to be a professional wrestler?
Well, honestly, I think my story is very similar to most people's stories. So I started watching wrestling when I was like 10. I decided I wanted to be a pro wrestler, but I had to be 18 to start wrestling. So I started doing kickboxing because I knew Lita had done kickboxing. So, I was like, okay, so if she did kickboxing, maybe it could help me as well. So that's why I started doing these martial arts. And even though it was difficult at first because of that background, it was hard to learn how to work. But I think eventually it has actually really helped, knowing that and having that background.
Oh, brilliant. So who is it that who have you been coaching recently that's been breaking through to the Finnish scene?
Well, we actually have, I think we had 6 guys and 1 girl brought up. They had their debuts this fall. I was with them. I was like overseeing their training, but I was not the person with them each and every day. But all of those guys, I think they have gotten the best training we've ever given anyone, and I hope it evolves. It doesn't stay here, but they are extremely talented. I don't think we've ever had anyone that ready in their debut in Finland. But yeah, Stella, she's a part of a lucha tag team kind of thing. She's a masked female wrestler. I think the first masked female wrestler in Finland ever. So she's kind of like my baby now.
That's great. So going to your career, then you mentioned there was only like a couple of you starting out, and then they kind of disappeared. What was going through your head when you literally like last one standing, essentially? Well, there's yourself and Jessica Love, but
well, I don't know, because it was such a weird time, because obviously I started right straight from high school, so I was very young. This was the only thing I've ever wanted to do, and I kind of just felt like, okay, so I just have to take this to be a wrestler. That was kind of my first few years, just thinking like, I'm supposed to feel like shit all the time, every time I go out there and train and do whatever. But at some point when it kind of got too much, I had gotten a lot of nasty comments from the upper people, or person rather. And then I had one match where I was just beaten like real bad, like real stiff, and I think all that kind of just built up, and I decided, okay, this is my last match. I can't do this. So then me and Jessica, actually, we both had for like a break until we were just, okay, we're not gonna wrestle now. And until the new guy started leading, we didn't wrestle. So when we got the new guy, oh, I'm so lost of words now. I'm sorry, English is just not coming out today. But anyway, the new guy in charge, then for the next show we had our match together, the first time ever. So that was kind of, I think it was very symbolic, and that match is actually on YouTube. It's not very good, but it has such a special value in my heart for everything that it represents.
Yeah, because it seems like, especially with FCF, you've broken down those gender divisions. You're a professional wrestler, you're in the male division. You're not in the women's division. You're just in the wrestling division, and I think that's why a lot of people around Europe, especially female competitors, want to go to Finland, because it isn't, hey, you've got to wrestle this person because that's what should happen. If you're good enough, you get in with whoever.
Yeah, exactly. We're not, we don't have any divisions. We're just wrestling. We don't actually call, when we have men fighting women or whatever, we're not calling it intergender wrestling. It's just wrestling. Obviously, mine and Jessica's match wasn't even an intergender match. We're both females, so it was so weird how long it took for us to get that match. But that's a whole another and longer story. But I still think, in saying that I want to keep it intergender, I still feel like women are still in wrestling world as a whole are still seen as less than, and are not seen as capable as the men. So I think it's still very important to push the women, as in, because we have the FCA women brand, kind of, we sell merchandise, we have our hashtag and stuff, so we kind of like, we want to keep that brand up, and that's why we're like pushing, like, okay, the women are gonna have a seminar, the women are hopefully gonna get just a whole all women show at some point, and you know, we still have a lot to work on in Finland, and I think in the Nordic countries.
I think in wrestling in general, to be honest.
Yes.
Because there's been companies here in the UK where fans was like, well, you don't even have a women's division, you don't have a women's division, and then before you know it, they've got a women's division, but you might have one match every few shows, and it's as if they've just done it because they felt like they had to rather than they wanted to. And I think that's the important things with yourself, although you're not classing it as intergender wrestling. And don't get me wrong, I think it's great when people showcase it as intergender wrestling.
Yeah.
But the fact that you can just showcase it as wrestling is even more important. And I think it's going up that curve where if it's intergender wrestling, great, because it's still a step forward, but it's not the end goal. It's, again, need to remove the intergender.
Yeah, precisely. And like you said, having like a one women's show in or a women's match in a show, I think that's the bare minimum. Like, to, okay, we have women, we have one match where there are women, so we're like very inclusive, like okay, that's the start, but come on.
Yeah.
There are so many incredible female wrestlers in the world right now, I think more than ever, so there's really no excuse.
Exactly. So I think it's still good that although you do the inclusivity where it's just builders wrestling, you're still making that effort to promote women's wrestling as well, because you're not, I guess you're not naive, you know there's room for change, and it's good to see you spearheading it. And when you are involved in such a philosophy, I guess, of wrestling, and you have people like, when I've spoken to like Six Star, Alice Inc., and they just, or Vicky Noctum, and they talk about how much they want to get to Finland and wrestle in Finland and their experiences. How does that feel for yourself, the fact that you kind of becoming the hub of the place to be, especially in the Nordic countries?
From what I understand, I've talked to some of the guys from Sweden and Norway who we have had, and they said it's like, it's kind of a stamp of approval when you get booked to Finland, because we don't book a lot of guys or girls even from outside, and now even less than we did before. And the reason for that is because we want to use our own wrestlers. And if we bring someone in, we need them to help our product to really bring a different kind of people in. So like we have a very white roster, for example, so we don't need more white men, just, sorry, but no offense, but like we have so many white men. So if we bring up, I'm not saying we can't bring someone who is white and male, but like if we are bringing them, we're gonna need them to have, they need to be so much better than our guys to be worth that. And also we need someone who can then maybe bring us some knowledge to maybe have seminars, because obviously we can't just build and get better just between ourselves. We need to learn from other people, and I think that's why we've also elevated so much, because we had Robbie Brookside here training before, and then we have El Generico, who is Sami Zayn now, who actually taught us the match structure and how that works and how it should work. So yeah, I think it's crucial that we have people coming from the outside, but we are now a lot more strict on who we bring.
No, it makes sense. When you're thinking, like when you was talking about people that at offer, because you don't want people that are just wanting to come for a payday. You want people that want to invest and make sure the product's better. And one person that I think he does need the credit, I don't think he's been in Finland, but for what he's been doing in Denmark with Liu King Sharp, he's kind of gone to DPW and Copenhagen Championship Wrestling, and he's fallen in love with it. And he does commentary, and he keeps going over. And I had him on the show, and was just speaking about like his love for the Danish wrestling scene. So I feel like it's somebody like that, somebody where they want to build it rather than get the payday.
Yeah, we actually had him a couple of years back. He was in, I don't remember which show, but he was working one of my friends who is who also loves comedy wrestling, and it was so good to see him to get that opportunity with someone who is so excellent in that. So that was a good match, and I think there was, I think a lot of people learned from him.
Yeah,
I hope so.
I'm trying to think of. It'd have been, was it Make Smooth?
What?
Who was it that Lou was facing?
Yes, Make Smooth. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
His pronunciations is different.
I know, but I try to understand.
we got there. But
he's actually my tag team partner now.
Oh,
yeah, he's now Prince Make.
Yeah. How did that tag team get about then? Because I know, didn't you have a match earlier this month?
Yeah, we did. We did like a no audience kind of taping thing. That tag team actually, because I knew him before we started wrestling. We were just little smarks watching WWE and watching British wrestling and watching, we were such nerds, and I would not want to hang out with myself from that time. So yeah, I think when we started training, we are in the same class, so we started at this on the same day in 2014. So I think because when you're the new guy, or at least in that time, we always had to get the ring back to the training hall from the show, so it was often me and him and then somebody. So we kind of like made a joke out of it about the tag team already, like way back when. And then at some point when we had the new people running the organization, I actually got the chance to write some of my own stories.
Yeah.
So that's kind of when we started working towards our tag team. So we had a year-long storyline how that happened, and then we did like a year, or almost. It's almost been 2 years. It's almost been 2 years now, yeah, as a tag team.
Oh,
yeah.
wow. Is it a tournament that you're currently in?
Yes, it's the first tag team tournament in Finland. Yeah. So we just advanced to the semifinals.
Amazing. Is that going to be a cup, or is it to crown tag team champions?
I don't think so. It's just like more of like a king of the ring, king kind of thing. So it's just the best tag team in Finland.
Are you hoping that the tag team scene could keep growing to the point where there is the titles and things like that?
I hope so, and I think so, because we are getting more and more wrestlers all the time. We have so many applications just still coming in, which has never happened before. Now we had so many people in the last tryouts that we had to cut almost half of the applicants off. So we can now we can actually pick and choose like the actually people who seem like they get it and actually want to do it.
It's very like I've found that across quite a lot of the like the Nordic Scandinavian wrestling scenes, where you do like the tryouts and the applicants. It seems very different to how it's done in most places here in the UK, and I think it seems to work. It seems like more of a, say, like a WWE route, where you'll analyze people's maybe their personality, their desire, but also if they're athletes and things like that.
Yeah, honestly, when we were holding the last tryouts, I didn't really care who did the best bumps or rolls. We actually didn't take the guys who did the best bumps in the tryouts, just based on the interviews that we did with them. So the interview was the most important part. Of course, we need them to have some sort of physical ability so that we know that they are coachable.
Yeah.
But they don't need to be ready in any sense. Just that they're coachable and they seem good, like they're good people, and they want to wrestle and they want to make Finnish wrestling better.
Yeah.
So
if somebody is listening to this and they're one of the people trying to get through that application process, try and get to the tryouts, like, what would you recommend to them?
Honestly, I think they just need to be honest in their applications. So I'm not gonna say what I want to hear, because we're gonna see through that at some point anyway. But if you actually want to wrestle and you think you have that, I think anyone who has the desire and passion and the gift to do this should be able to do this. So
brilliant. So Going back to, I think you mentioned earlier, you was in Leicester with Robbie.
Yeah.
How did that come about? What was that experience like?
Well, honestly, I was in the UK training before I even had my debut in Finland. I did a couple of times in Brookside School, and then I did the camp in WAW
Yeah.
or Bellatrix. But yeah, I was there in the Brookside School like a couple of times without him being there because he obviously lives in Florida or wherever. But he was watching via like a video call the whole trainings, and then we had a promo class which he commented on the end of the trainings. And then one Christmas time when he was actually physically there, I went there as well, but then there were a lot of people, like I think 40 people at least. So I didn't get as much of that, I think, as I did from the previous lessons that I was there. But yeah, I've been like, I watched a lot of British wrestling, and I kind of like wanted to get into that scene a lot when I started in wrestling. I think I kind of had to move that aside when I had my biggest struggles, mentally and with everything going on in Finland, that I just needed to get myself straight and get the Finnish scene somehow straight before venturing out again. But yeah.
What was it like with WAW? Was that under Saraya?
It was under Saraya, yeah. I think we had Zach doing one of the trainings as well. It was okay. I got very good friends from that. I still am very close with some of the people that I spent time with in there. And I also had a match with the WAW then. It was like a week-long camp. It was, I think, 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
And then after the 8-hour day on Friday, we drove straight to the venue, build up the ring, put your gear on, do the show. And it was, I don't really remember a lot of it. I was so tired and so new. I was still, I think, a year in wrestling or something at that time. So yeah, I think all in all, I have good memories.
Oh, brilliant. So now that you've kind of got the Finnish scene into a good place, do you want to come back to the UK? Is that something you want to do? Is come wrestle over here?
Yes, absolutely. Right now, I think with where I am now and with speaking out movement, right now I only want to work with all female promotions and promotions that I have someone who can recommend them to be a safe place to working. So I'm not really just sending applications everywhere. I'm being very cautious right now. So obviously you mentioned Fierce Females. I think that's my go-to place right now, and also Pro Wrestling Eve in London. Those are my first ones. I eventually want to go to the States to go around all the female promotions there with Shimmer, Shine, Women of Wrestling Superstars, and maybe even Stardom in Japan. So I just want to check all those female wrestling promotions off my list. That's my goal.
I think with Japan there is so many. Obviously there's Stardom, but then you got Meiko Satomura's Sendai Girls. They came over here to the UK and did a show which was incredible to see. And then Seedling, they're doing some great stuff. Is Ice Ribbon. Like, the Japanese wrestling scene is just spoilt for choice. There's so many good promotions, but it's interesting with you saying that with the speaking out movement and stuff, because I think people still need to be careful. Although a lot of people have been outed, not everybody
but not
has.
all. No.
And I always felt quite bad. I'd interviewed somebody where we've become quite friendly. She's from Singapore. She was the first ever Singaporean female wrestler. And
yeah, I actually follow her on Instagram.
Yeah, Alexis, she's got a heart of gold, bless her. Like when my daughter Malia was born, she asked for my address to send something over from Singapore and send it over some like little baby outfits and stuff like that. And I think that's just a testament just how nice she is. And she was like,
yeah.
and there was a new company that was okay, and they've announced a few people that I know, and I thought, okay, it must be all right. And I think I tagged her and a couple of other people that had been told, yep, we're going to be on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And then that person got outed, where he was not only, nonce, put it that way, but also racist, and was very much, we need that token individual where somebody was no longer available that ticked off the Asian demographic. So now she was doubting her own skills, thinking, could that be the reason? And the fact that people are like that, I think people still do need to be careful. So when you do come over, obviously Feast Females is great. Vader that's running it is trying to change a lot of it, and obviously Aisha is fantastic. So I definitely recommend that. But if you do come over, like, just even ask and I'm like, these people are okay. Like they've got some good people that I can introduce you to. But it's a shame that's the case, and it's a shame that it's got to the point where people wouldn't feel safe if they didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
And there wasn't any. There didn't seem to be much speaking out stuff across the Nordic countries, though.
No.
I don't know if that's because Twitter isn't used as much, so
that as well. But I think people still have that kind of old school mentality in a lot of ways where they don't want to talk about the older guys because like, oh, but they are from that and that era and they learn to do these things. They are just born homophobic basically, or transphobic or whatever. So obviously we've had so much homophobia, sexism, transphobia, all that was horrible, and we're still having to fix all the damage that it has done to our brand. A lot of people still view us as being that, as being very old school, as being very sexist and being very homophobic and all that. So we really have to work extra hard to build our brand, in for how it is now. So we can't just be, okay, we're not doing that anymore and that's it. That's not enough. That won't work. But yeah, in saying that, I did give an interview about speaking out to one of our like Finnish fan-based kind of organizations as well. And I just talked about the bullying and how things were back then, but I didn't mention, like I said, the sexual harassment because it has not been done to me personally, so I don't have the right to speak on that. But it's not unheard of in the Nordic countries.
Yeah, but with you saying that, then, like, again, I think mental health is something that's not taken as serious, and you've been using your platform to kind of like talk about your story because, again, whether it's people with depression or anxiety, eating disorders, bipolar, there's so much that goes under mental health, and people can be quick to judge or dismiss or disregard people's mental state. Like, so first off, like, props to you. I know I commented and then I messaged straight away, just saying like, fair play to you for speaking out, because I know it's not an easy thing. Like when I've spoken publicly about like my mental health and suicide and things like that, it's never easy. So what made you like talk about the eating disorders and
Well, I think a lot of it had to do with me getting better.
Yeah.
That I felt that I have the strength and energy to do so. I've struggled with eating disorders for almost my entire life, at least since I was 13 or something. So, and I think last year was the first time that I actually said it out loud, that I actually have an eating disorder. Um, and also starting therapy last year really helped. And I think with doing my therapy and all the exercises that I've gotten from there, I felt like I needed to make it something that I really actually speak of in my social media as well, because I I talk about a lot of things in my life. I would say something if I hurt my ankle. I would say something if I had, you know, some sort of an injury or anything. So kind of felt that I felt like I was myself, you know, helping that stigma stick, you know, with not talking about it. So I think it's very selfish, really. It's actually helping me a lot to say these things in a public forum, and knowing that, okay, now these people who are following me know that this is a struggle that I have. But I've noticed that it has helped a lot of people. I've gotten a lot of messages, and a lot of people have talked to me about their experiences, and I've noticed how much it actually matters to talk about that. So that's why I keep doing it.
Yeah, definitely. And do you think with the eating disorders that's affected your wrestling, or how have you been received in wrestling from it?
Absolutely, yeah. When I started wrestling, I was 20 years old when I had my first match. I only thing I cared about was how fat I would look. I did not care about how I could wrestle or how I maybe got the crowd to interact or anything. I just cared about how fat I would look, and I would starve myself. I would um, take all these pills and stuff to get my body so dry as I possibly could, which obviously affected my wrestling, because I had no energy to wrestle. I had no energy to really even smile, and I was babyface when I started, so it was a very training time. And I think I it was very, because also obviously wrestling is very superficial. A lot of people are very shallow, and there's a lot of body shaming, and especially for women, you know, it is as for men as well, but men have more of those boxes that they can fit into. They can be the big scary guy, they can be the smaller cruiserweight type of guy, and then they can be, you know, just a buff, basically just muscular kind of guy, and even maybe a skinny guy. That's yeah. But like, women were really put into this one category. So you just have to be pretty, and you have to have big boobs, and preferably a big ass, but nothing else. You just need to be very thin, and then that's it. And I was told that. I was told that my thighs are the wrong shape, that I need to lose weight because my opponent in my next match is gonna be very it's gonna be very good looking. It's gonna be in really good shape. So you need to lose weight. So that didn't help with my eating disorder. um, so it got really bad at some point. And then because of that, I got diagnosed with depression as well.
Yeah.
So it kind of just build up to eventually I just couldn't do anything. I was like, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't work. I can't wrestle. I just fucking quit. So yeah, I think now I've been kind of working on that for the past year, and that's why I think 2020 was very helpful for me to have that kind of break, to really have the time to seek help, start my therapy. I'm still obsessed with wrestling. I'm still, training and watching wrestling every day, and trying to build my character and get new ideas and inspiration and stuff. So but yeah, just not having to go to the training hall, multiple times a week, and not having to do the shows every single month, that really helped to get that break. But I'm kind of done with the break now, so we can we can move on.
Yeah, it obviously can't be easy, and I think that's why it's important for people like yourself and anybody that's suffering with any sort of mental health problem, because you mentioned it, if you had an ankle injury, it would you'd talk about it. And I say it to like in my work over the past probably about 7 years, I've spoken a lot about mental health. I've done public speaking about it. When I was in Africa, I was doing HIV/AIDS awareness, but I was also trying to educate them with mental health, because at that point I still had my depression and anxiety, and they didn't really understand it, because in their culture it's not a thing people deal with, or not that they're aware of. So I was just trying to create awareness with that. And with my customers, like when they in my job now, I try and help people find work, or if they've got health conditions, I try and overcome those barriers. And people talk about, well, I don't want to be on medication, I'm not doing counselling. And I just say, well, if you broke your leg, what would you do? And he was like, well, what would you do about the pain? He went, well, I'd take painkillers. I was like, okay. I was like, and afterwards, you just going to go play football, or are you going to go play rugby again? I was like, well, no, I need to build up, so go to the gym, maybe do physio. Like, brilliant. I went, your mind needs that too. So when people are saying, here's some tablets, don't let the stereotype take over, because at the end of the day, they're just the painkillers. And the counselling is, or the CBT, or any sort of therapeutic service you're doing, that's your physio, just to try and heal and overcome those struggles. And like way back when, I was a professional football coach before I started doing all this. That was my job. I was fit and healthy. I'd go play football. I was doing some wrestling training, and a couple of injuries to the knees, injuries to the back and neck, mental health and stuff like that. Over the years, I put on the weight, and I ended up getting, I think, like one of the worst things was when I'd bump into somebody around town that I've not seen for years. I'm like, bloody hell, you put a bit of weight on now. I'm like, do you think that's acceptable? Like, is that okay? Or I've had, when my fiance was pregnant, like I heard somebody at work use a joke about it, and I was like, I thought it was his partner that was supposed to be pregnant. And something like that. And at the time, I'd been going to gym. I'd lost, I think, about 2 stone at the time. And it was like, well, and I pulled him up on it. He was manager, and I was like, look, I don't think that's like acceptable. Like my weight, I'm very paranoid about it. He's like, but you're not that big. I may not be that big, but at the end of the day, I still look in the mirror and think that's disgusting and stuff like that. I was like, you should not be saying that. I went, that's not okay. I was like, I'd come to you first instead of going above your head, because you need to change. And you see it on social media. Like one of my old shows that I used to do before going solo, one of their friends will comment still about me on their videos, even if I'm not in those videos, about my weight and stuff like that. And they remove it. But sometimes I see it and it's like, well, why are you allowing one of your friends to do that? Where it's on about height, because I'm about 5'5". I'm a short ass, and again the body weight and stuff. And the missus always says, I think this is the first time I've spoken about mental health, but it's the first time I've spoken about my, like, I guess, hatred for body. Like the missus refers it as bullying. Like, I bully myself about it. But then
Yeah.
because it's mental health, or it's the depression or anxiety, I'll do it where I'll stop eating and I'll maybe have one meal a day, if that. And then before I know it, I feel crap. And then I'll just binge and just eat because it's those foods are nice. They make me happy. Like,
Yeah.
and I think people need to kind of realize what they're saying can hurt, whether it's professional wrestlers, like, or if it's different fans or anybody. Like, social media has given people a way to say anything without any repercussions, because I'm sure they wouldn't say it to my face.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of slowly, because they've seen it's being okay to do that on social media, it's in the real world now as well, where people don't think about the digs about weight and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. But I hope it's changing now.
Yeah, I hope so. Like, and I think people like yourself do need to keep, and it's not putting pressure on you, obviously. If you think actually I can't speak, but I think it's why I respect people so much when they speak about the mental health and stuff and all these different eating disorders. Like, one of my best friends growing up, she's no longer here. She struggled with bulimia and depression before, like, it was mental health related why she isn't here. But and I just think that's why people need to watch what they say, and it's not even for those that they may think's overweight, with people that may be a lot skinnier as well, where I think people can still comment on that, like, oh, well, don't you eat, or things like that. You don't know the reason why. It could be undergoing health condition that's not mental health related, what's affecting people's weight, either side of the spectrum. And I think people just stop being dicks and be nicer to each other.
Yeah, exactly. And especially with eating disorders, it has really nothing to do with how you look or how much you weigh. It's a mental disorder. It's a mental disease. So I think we can just all stop commenting on each other's bodies or foods or what we eat or what we don't eat, just in general, because you don't know.
Exactly. But to kind of like get it on a lighter note, then we've spoke heavily about like the Finnish scene and your training aspects and stuff. But you mentioned matches with Alpha Female. You mentioned matches with Toni Storm. What was it like working with, especially those two? Because probably at the time they were two of the biggest names across Europe.
They were, yeah. I think my third match in my career was against Alpha Female, so I was super green. I really had no idea of wrestling yet. Obviously I did as a fan, but not as a worker. So she was the nicest person. She was so supportive. She was really just carrying me. It was a three-way match, but um, I think I really clicked with her. She really um, she really supported me in before the match,
Yeah.
in the match and after. So I have very fond memories of her. Um, with Toni as well, I really like Toni. I think she was sick when she got to Finland, so she was very tired. So we didn't really have that much time to hang out or stuff, because when we were talking about the match, she was somewhere
Yeah.
sleeping. So
No.
so but it was still a very good experience as well. And it was very different because I just to see like how people build matches and how different people from different parts of the world kind of what their idea of leading a match is, for example. So um really getting to learn from different kind of styles and on how to do that, and I think I'm pretty good at it myself now. So yeah, good memories, even though, like I said, bittersweet because I couldn't wrestle the
Yeah.
guys. They had to fly in, but yeah.
Who else on like the Finnish team, when you look back, you've enjoyed working, whether it's just that once or you've had series of matches?
Well, I think me and Jessica's feud was very special to me, and I think we worked well together. So that's always gonna have a special place in my heart. But I think my favorite person to work with would be the Sun, who is now the Nordic champion.
Yeah.
He's a Vietnamese, Finnish, Swedish guy. He's a very dear friend of mine as well. We only had one match. I was supposed to challenge him for the championship at our biggest show of the year, but we had to postpone that. I hope we get that match. It was brilliant working with him. We had such good chemistry. So yeah, I think the Sun is my favorite.
So you're hoping that comes back around so you can be like, what would it mean to you to be the champion, like to represent FCF?
Well, actually, that championship that the Sun has is like the Nordic countries championship. Yeah. So it's originated from Stockholm Wrestling.
Yeah.
So it's a bit different. And kind of, yeah, but it's a newer championship as well. So it's I think I said to one of the bookers here like a year ago that when they booked me in, because I had a championship match in 2019 for the FCF championship. It was a ladder match that I honestly I didn't know who what the booking was, so I didn't know who was gonna win the championship, but I just knew it wasn't me because I'm a woman. And so when they said like, no, actually we were talking about that, it could have been you.
Yeah.
That's just when I kind of realized that I've never had the dream of being the FCF champion because that was never an opportunity for a woman before. So I never actually thought about that. But now that I had that match and after talking with the bookers about the match, I think it's actually possible for us to have a female champion. So I think we're eventually gonna get there. Absolutely. We're gonna need to. I think a woman would be a good representation of FCF wrestling, and I think I would be the best one to do that.
If it wasn't yourself, excuse me, if it wasn't yourself for whatever reason, what other females do you think could step up to that plate?
Well, I think my protege Mikita could do it. She is she is actually bubbly. She's very positive. She's very she has such a good attitude and she's such a hard worker. And I love her to death. I think she could be an audience loves her. So I think it's gonna take a couple of years for her, but I think she would be she would, be a person that can hold that title because it's not just what happens in the ring and how they can work. They need to have that they need to be a trustworthy person for the company to have us there, the main person. But if it isn't Nikita, well, if it isn't me and it's not Nikita, then I would say Alice Inc. from Sweden. I love her. She's my adopted baby, wrestling baby. She was here training a year ago, and I fell in love with her. I think she's my soulmate. So I would book her to any championship if I could.
Have you two faced each other yet?
No, only trained together. Yeah, we've never been in the same show. I was trying to get her here last year. I was trying to do that again this year, but the COVID just, keeps fucking up my plans. But yeah, I think we were actually trying to bring all the girls from Sweden and Norway to Finland for the women's show. But obviously we had to cancel that. But I hope we can do it like in 2021 or something, or 2022. Sorry.
Well, that seems like something that I keep putting to, I think, all my guests is like a Scandinavian, like all the Nordic countries coming together to do a massive super show, whether it's just one or a series in like each of their territories, just to showcase, like if you got it on like whether it's on YouTube or on one of the different streaming services, putting it out there just to try and raise the awareness of this like amazing wrestling scene. It seems like that's kind of what he was wanting to do with that women's show, bringing the best from like Sweden and Norway. What would be your thoughts on that if companies from these countries could put maybe the ego or differences aside and business would work? Do you think that would help the wrestling scene if you all came together to try and produce these, say, like super shows?
I think it would be a good learning opportunities for the wrestlers. It could be, and even the people who are running the shows could learn from each other. You know how things are done. The bookers could learn from each other. I think there are a lot of positive sides. I don't know how that would work actually, but I think the idea is good. Obviously, Finland is not part of Scandinavia. We're just one of the Nordic countries, but we're not in Scandinavia. So, but maybe you guys can like, or they guys can like borrow us to Scandinavia for that super show.
Now, I think when I've spoken to everybody, like despite you not being officially like obviously Scandinavia, I think people still treat you as such because you're still one of the Nordic countries. You're still one of the neighbouring, and the wrestling scene's like great out there. So if it was to happen then and you used to be involved, two questions there. If for one of your matches, who would you want in that match? And if it was to be told, right, Regina, you can book any match that's not including yourself, what match would you want to see personally as that smarky wrestling fan nerd that was way back when that you wouldn't want to be friends with now?
Well, I think I would love to. My first option would be Alice Inc. Obviously. But I would like to work Betty Rose as well. She's very charismatic, and she really. And I'm working heel right now, so I think we would be very the kind of the opposites. And my wrestling is very much story based and character based, so I think it could work with her. But who would I want to see? Oh gosh. I think my favorite I'm mostly interested in women's wrestling though. So I don't watch a lot of the guys. But maybe let me think. Maybe like I think I would like to see the Sun go up against Vicky Noctem from Norway. And I would like to see, I think Shemeka I think he's the best in Finland right now. Shemeka, he's a great storyteller. He's a great at scripting matches. He's great at wrestling. He's great at promos. He's just
great.
He's just great. So I would really like to see him up against anyone. Maybe, well, Emeritus has kind of like the same look that Shemeka had before. So maybe like Shemeka versus Emeritus from Body Slam, right? Yeah. So maybe that. Yeah, or Michael Finn. I was about to say, now that I started to think about Body Slam, I was like, oh yeah, but okay. Those are that's my answer, and it's final.
Vicky's great, and she was one of the people that mentioned like she wants to go over to Finland, and
she was here training a year ago as well. But
so like, what are your goals left in wrestling? Then I know you mentioned like America, Japan, the UK, but is, for example, like NXT UK or anything like that, is that a goal of yours, or what are your goals?
My goal is to get as better as I possibly can in wrestling and do as much as I can, and as long as I enjoy it. So I don't see myself quitting wrestling or doing anything else, because this is just my only passion in life, really. So I think I'm just gonna keep on working hard and wrestling and traveling, and I'll see where it goes. Obviously, the dream would be to, do this really professionally, so that I wouldn't need another job. So that's the dream, I think. But doing it in a way that working with people who are respectful and also thrive for equality and inclusivity in wrestling. So
not next to you, Paul.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. But yeah, I don't I don't know. AEW seems nice.
Yeah.
I hope they, I'm just training for the day that someday someone is like, oh, okay, they're bullshit. Like someone says something, and they have slaves, and they, I don't know. But they seem like they're doing things right. At least they're trying. So they seem like a good place to go.
Yeah, definitely. But now I've got to say, like, it's been amazing, like, having you on the show, and a great way to truly kick off like the Finnish wrestling series. First off, like, where can people find you on social media?
I'm mostly active on Instagram, which is to Regina. My Twitter is also to Regina, and you should also be able to find my Facebook page as to Regina. And I recently started my YouTube channel, which is just Regina Rosendahl.
You ruined it. You had two Regina across the board.
Yeah, but I couldn't figure out. I was trying to, because I just put up my name as Regina Rosendahl, and then I couldn't. I tried to do it yesterday to just change it to Regina, but I couldn't find a way to do that. But I'm trying, so I could be to Regina everywhere. But yeah, I think Instagram, Twitter, Facebook is the. If you want to contact me, Instagram is the fastest way to do so.
Oh, brilliant. But no, thank you again for coming on the show. Like, we'll definitely have to do it again once things go back to normal. And I think probably my priorities in wrestling is probably coming over to the likes of Finland and Sweden and Denmark. So hopefully get down to an FCF show in the future.
You should.
And we'll definitely have to try and get you across here, especially for fierce females.
Yeah, I really hope it's going to happen soon, but we'll see how the world is.
Well, everybody, make sure you do go follow Regina on social medias. Make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe, and just remember, be nice to people. Don't be a dick. Until next time.